Vijay Vishwakarma, welcome one and all for the day 4 session 3 of Research Methodology in Social Sciences, organized by the IQAC of Bansanga's SM Shetty College of Science, Commerce and Management Studies, Powai, sponsored by the Indian Council of Social Science and Research. In education, research and innovation, today we often hear the terms interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary. Many of us may use this term without understanding what exactly they mean. In this workshop, we will explore the meaning of these terms and also try to understand the significance of the same. When people from different disciplines working together on a single research, each drawing on their disciplinary knowledge, is it is known as multidisciplinary research, whereas the integrating knowledge and methods from different disciplines using a real synthesis of approaches, which is called as interdisciplinary research. To further understand about the same, we have with us very renowned resource person, Professor Dr. Medha Tapiawala. So I feel very much honored and privileged to introduce our today's resource person. Ma'am is a doctorate in economics on banking productivity. Ma'am has been a former director of Garwari Institute of Career Education and Development. Presently, ma'am is working as a professor in economics at University of Mumbai, in Mumbai School of Economics and Public Policy. Ma'am has been appointed as Public Interest Director at Indian Clearing Corporation of Indian subsidiary of BSc. Her passion in teaching makes her students-friendly teacher, and this is her 31st year of teaching, and she's also a PhD guide. Ma'am has written and published many research papers at national and international level. She has conducted many workshops and camps for the gender sensitization at various colleges in Mumbai and out of Mumbai. Ma'am has also completed various projects which was funded by the Indian Council of Social Science Research and one by University of Mumbai. Ma'am is fond of traveling and visited many countries and explored many things when it comes to research. So, ma'am, we are very much honored and very much excited to hear more about this the topic, which is interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary approaches in research. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining us, ma'am.
Thank you so much for those kind words, and thank you so much for having me here, giving me this opportunity to speak with all of you. And I always prefer that instead of having this only a one-way kind of talk, I would prefer to have a discussion, especially at this time, because this is the time where sometimes, afternoon time after lunch and all, people would prefer to take a nap. So I would like to make it sure that you're all awake and you try to understand and try to get what I am trying to tell. So thank you once again, Liji and ICSS, Liji for representing the college, Shetty College, and ICSSR for giving me this opportunity. And with this, I think I will begin with my presentation. So I'll share my screen and start with my presentation. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. I'll make it a full screen. Is it a full screen now? Yeah. So thank you so much for giving this particular topic, because this topic is quite close to my heart, since the area of my interest is aligned into the socio-economic, political economy, psychology and economics. So I am more concerned and more interested in talking much more about this particular topic. And of course, today I want to be able to go into the that depth where I would like you people to, solve certain numericals and solve certain cases in interdisciplinary research. But I will try to make it as simple and try to reach to all of you, at least wherein you would be provoked to take a certain areas wherein you would indulge in this interdisciplinary research. So to tell you the beginning of this interdisciplinary research is not the latest one. I mean, it is not in the recent years what has happened. I mean, to tell you, the research has begun, I think, right from the time where human beings have understood that they're human beings. It is because the age-old human were different from the modern human. What I'm trying to tell you is the process of evolution have made this evolution fruitful only because people must have done research and they must have executed that research. You see, execution of what we are gaining through the knowledge is what is expected in the education, and that's the reason why research is so much important in all types of education. Just I mean, this is a vague idea which came to my mind, which I felt that when we talk about research, when did the documented research came? And somehow I felt that, is it that where our mythological books were written? Is it where certain kind of history or Vedas which were written? So for making the documentation of all this, also there was a need of something where the research came into existence. So the research must have come into existence, especially because, as I said, as the picture shows, that Rishi Valmiki, the sage Valmiki, must have jotted down certain certain areas of research which he was interested in, what he has seen, and that is how the documented research which came into existence. The picture in the left hand side, the top, which speaks about how the evolution has happened. But the evolution was not easy. For the difference between human and animals have lied only because the urge for earning knowledge for human were much bigger than that of the other animals. And that is why we have moved from where we were to what we are now. If you see the picture which is shown in the left hand side corner, which speaks about what is the modern kind of idea of research which we understand. Collection of data, derivation of results, analysis of those results, then giving the policies, so many things which we do in the modern times with this research. Maybe in the olden times when the history has happened, that time also people must have done the similar thing, and that is how the evolution of research has happened. So just to give you the brief idea about the introduction of research, this is a recherche, which means the French word, which means that to go about seeking, we have to understand what is research. We try to seek something, some kind of knowledge, that is the systematic investigation into and the study of material and the sources in order to establish the facts and reach new conclusions. To be precise, what we try to do is we put the different parts of puzzle together and we come to the connecting of these dots, which talks about this research. So it has to be something creative. It has to be for increasing the stock of knowledge. It should be for the benefit of the society. And it should also be meant for having something new, some additional, some upgradation in what we were aware of earlier. You see, so research, I mean, you must have had sessions on how the research has started, but the research in humanities and research in social sciences have got a different meaning than that of the research in science, especially because we deal with something intangible, we deal with something which is not so visible and not always been empirically tested. But of course, in the modern times, we do that. The research which we come across today is, as I've shown, the graphs, you know, the ups and downs, and the data entry, the slicing of data, experiments happening in the lab, experiments happening in the controlled area, lot of collection of data earlier. I mean, around 20 years back, the data was collected from the books, physically data was collected. Now there are e-copies and there are sites and there are open sources, and the data is collected with many, many ways. So there is a transformation which has happened to the research. And this transformation which has happened to the research is, of course, for the betterment, you know, for the upgradation of the quality. I mean, I remember the way around 20 years back when we were into research and when I was doing my PhD, you know, to take out the journals for extracting some data from the journals, maybe for 10 years data, if I wanted to see at least 50 journals we had to browse. You know, now browsing journals physically was a different ballgame altogether than that of checking the resources on open sources and getting it from JSTOR, getting it from archive, getting it from so many sites. You know, so but this transformation is happening especially because there's a change in the technology. To come to the main topic which I would like to deal with is, in what way do I look at the research in humanities or research in the social sciences? Basically, there is a difference between humanities as well as social science. If I talk about the humanities, they are considered to be more philosophical than that of social sciences. You know, for example, if I'm talking about law, or if I'm talking about ancient languages, or if I'm talking about the modern languages, if I'm talking about the mother of all social sciences, which is philosophy, from there we have derived all the other, like political science, economics, sociology, all that is derived from that. But the base of that is morality, is what we generally deal with is little more philosophical. For example, if I'm talking about ancient language, you know, research in ancient language is very different from research in economics or research in psychology, because even to understand the vowels, or to understand the scripts, or to understand the grammar in the language in the ancient times, you know, so many changes have happened to that. And doing research in this kind of area is a very different experience than that of doing research in the social sciences. For example, if I'm talking about the research in economics as such, economics being a midway of the social sciences, because it also uses certain data or certain tools which the pure sciences are giving us, like mathematical tools, statistical tools, experimental tools. We do that. So understanding of this research in economics, which sometimes can be empirically tested, you know, we have qualitative data, we have quantitative data, and then understanding all this is different from how we do research on even law. You see, so the point which I want to mention here is, when I talk about research in humanities, whether I'm talking about research in these areas which I mentioned, like ancient languages, religion, performing arts, or am I going to talk something like the social sciences, like criminology, administration, archaeology, economics, psychology, political science, So these are the areas wherein scientific approach to the social sciences becomes possible. These are the areas which are considered to be the branch of study between humanities and natural science. You see, so that is why in today's session, I would like to talk something about something different than generally which I talk in the research methodology of how do we do it, what is sampling, how the design is done, and how the hypothesis is tested. I mean, you will be doing all that in the other sessions, but understand that coming to the interdisciplinarity or coming to the multidisciplinarity is little different from making somebody understand of research which is done in a performing art. At the same time, you're also studying economics with it. For example, in case of films, cinemas, there is a huge industry which deals also with the economic variables. There will be capex calculated for films, there will be revenue expenditure calculated for that, there will be opportunity cost calculated for that, there will be the cost which is missing, which is calculated, what not. So now what am I doing here? I am trying to tell you that here we are going to mix two different dimensions, and by mixing these two different dimensions, we are coming to a different conclusion, different analysis, or different types of repercussions from making so-called research, which is, of course, for seeking the upgraded knowledge to satisfy our not only the curiosity but also our higher material things. Now, why are we talking about all these things? See, we are talking about all these things because it's not in the very olden times, but our latest NEP, new education policy, which is also going to have a complete focus on interdisciplinary research. Now, interdisciplinary research have occupied almost 60 to 66 pages in NEP format. Now, the requirement of interdisciplinary research for NEP, not only from the choice-based credit system, but also for having a holistic development of the educational system, what is required is the interdisciplinary research. Now this interdisciplinary research is also mentioned in the National Academy's report of 2019. The name of the report is Facilitating Interdisciplinary Research, which is defining what is happening to the interdisciplinary research here. It says that in the interdisciplinary research, we need to understand the way in which a mode of research by teams or by individuals that are collecting some information, maybe in terms of data, maybe in terms of techniques, with the help of different tools, with having different perspectives, with having different conceptualization, and also to understand those theories where two or more disciplines with the specialized knowledge are coming together. Now these specialized knowledge where the fundamental understanding for solving of certain problems, which will give us certain solutions in different areas. But what we want is to find out this holistic solution, which is possible only with the help of interdisciplinary research. And that is why in the Facilitating Interdisciplinary Research report, it is assumed that in the modern times, whenever we want to have a complete understanding of a particular area, we always need to have this interdisciplinary research. Uh, Doing research in single discipline is very different from doing research in two disciplines or more disciplines, especially because the idea of particular area is not confined only to what is given to you. It gets enhanced, especially because, see, for example, as in philosophy, the great philosopher Kant has said that you see, the things exist because you think about those things, but if you don't think about the things, does that mean the things will not exist? Not necessarily. In the modern times, what we are seeing is the perception will play a very important role for every policy decisions which are taken. I'm talking about policy decision because my base is economics, and in economics we talk about how the policies are formed and how the research will be useful for these policy makings. Understand, these policies will not only be done by only economists, but for making these policies we require the people from management, people from commerce, people from political science, people from culture, people from bureaucrats. So I'm just counting down how many departments do we have to compile together to give one format of the policy. So at least minimum 5 to 10 departments should come together to think something about a good policy. That is why we give that due importance to the interdisciplinary research. Now, this interdisciplinary research initially was never ever looked from the perspective of how historically research was seen. The concept of this research also is as old as scientific research. The interdisciplinarity of research have started. I mean, I'm showing you this picture even in the later slides, but understand, it's like, we have, for example, if I want to study what is happening to India, is the study of only one country enough to tell how India is performing? I'm sure that the basic principle of economics is relativity. And this basic principle of economics, called as a relativity, will make the study or research in economics more and more interdisciplinary. Because when I want to study India, I also want to study what is happening to the import export, what is happening to the other countries around, what is the political situation in the nearby countries. I also want to know that the way in which geopolitical situation is happening for India. I also want to know what is the weather in India. I also want to know that in what way Indian economy or Indian policies is going to have impact on the global, so on and so forth. So it is not one part which I'm going to talk about, but I'm going to talk about even the other areas which at present I may feel that they are at outskirts. But we don't even come to know that when they come inside and when our research becomes more and more interdisciplinary research. Now understand, historically when the research was studied, the research and development in the beginning was only confined to the industrial production. I mean, many people feel that development and research is the department which is confined to the industrial areas, because in industries we require innovations, technology, something new with which the market gets expanded, the new consumers are found. But not necessarily research and development is only confined to the industrial production. It is also, I mean, the theory says that besides industrial development, also the research is required for culture, research is required for administration, it is required for ethnography, it is required for, as I said earlier, in humanities, languages, for so many things it is required. Now, the first organized attempt to harness this scientific skills to communal need of undertaking research were found in 1790, you know, in the century of 18, when the young revolutionary government in France was defending itself against most of the rest of Europe, which led to the research on explosive shells. You know, that time the captive observation of balloons were researched and even executed. The first method of making gunpowder also was executed, for which the research was not confined only to one area, but it was interdisciplinarity of research which was required. In 1870 in Germany and in 1875 in US, the first case of laboratory that spent a significant part of its parent company's revenue, which was especially for a very well-known research which has happened called as Edison Electric Light Company. Now, for which again, the interdisciplinarity was more important because there was employment of 20 laborers or scientists. I mean, the higher quality of laborers, which we considered as those that time who were assistants, were employed. Now, of course, to make these people work over there, it's not only the science which was behind the electric light which was important, but even the other things with which these electric light was going to be performing in the future was also used. Understand, at that time, the ethics for research was not very well known. I mean, in the interdisciplinary research, it is necessary even to talk about how the ethics are being looked at. It is because many years ago, there was no regulation on ethics. But in the modern times, that's not the case. No regulations does not mean that there is no morality or there was no ethics. You know, the regulation will come only when somebody is going to get confronted with the ethics, and because this confrontation would happen, to smoothen the process, the regulations will come. So in 20th century, many pharmaceuticals and the other industrial areas would brought certain amount of regulations on the research which was carried out then. You see, the subjects were involved without being informed, were not included in any kind of documented research here. And that is why today's ethics, today's regulations which have come, even the UGC is following it, which says that unless the things are evidenced, unless everything is being documented and the proper citation is given to that, you cannot go for this interdisciplinary research. Just like the individual discipline research, it is even in the interdisciplinary research. As a consequences of certain unethical studies, we now have to define those rules and regulations for the conduct of ethical, human, and cultural and scientific studies. You know, when I talk about human, cultural, scientific, why I'm taking all of them together? Because at present, I want to make it clear that the base for every research will have to be upgraded to the interdisciplinary research for making it holistic research. So now we have a committee to approve the ethics and give the informed consent to it. Going back to what I was talking about, the new education policy. So in this new education policy, when, as we all know, that there is a choice-based credit system which is developed. Now this choice-based credit system is just a beginning for our students to understand, or maybe even the teachers for that matter, to understand that any individual, the single disciplined research or single discipline study probably will make the research little handicapped. You see, I understand that there can be the forward linkages and there can be inward linkages. Now, these inward linkages are also important, but at present, let us see the way in which this interdisciplinarity is being looked in terms of forward and as well as inward kind of linkages. For which now the thing is, we have to understand what is interdisciplinary research. Now, the interdisciplinary research, as it is all of us are aware that it is a mode of research made by teams, not necessarily only individual will be interested in doing the research. When the projects are being sanctioned, it is generally seen that big projects are sanctioned only for the teams. And the teams need not be only to think in one direction. The team is being appointed or being selected especially because we require the integration of information. Now, integration of information from various fields is possible only when the team members are belonging to the various different fields. So if there are more disciplines or more bodies of specialized knowledge to advance fundamental understanding, the solution to the problems becomes more precise, and they are not restricted only to the particular discipline, but they can be executed beyond the limits of that particular discipline. For example, there was the policy which we were studying called as midday meal policy, and the policy when was looked for, we thought that this policy is especially for the dropouts of poor families. You see, but given to understand the execution of this particular scheme, we were surprised to know that it has crossed the discipline of understanding the economics of poor families, but it also have given chances for the social upbringing of girls from those poor families for the education. You see, so bringing of girl child to the education, was a byproduct which was being studied only because we left the discipline of economics and came to the discipline of sociology and tried to understand the repercussion of it. So this is how we look at the interdisciplinary research. It is not that the particular area is been left and you're entering into another area, but it is by having a fundamental specialized knowledge of one area and then look for the additional the advanced knowledge of another area and then club it with the first one. So that is what we look into the interdisciplinary research. Now, this interdisciplinary research is the higher value of multidisciplinary research. I'll tell you how. Because, in the multidisciplinary research, each discipline tries to study a particular target, particular objective which is given from their own perception. But understand, when they study all this, their conclusions probably will be only from their own lens. So when people from different disciplines work together, but their disciplinary knowledge, which is going to give them certain results, certain conclusions from execution of this knowledge need not be talking about one solution. For example, in such situation, okay, I'll give you example here for multidisciplinary research is if I am looking at a particular balance sheet, say a balance sheet of or Excel sheet of a ministry's report. You see the ministry which the budget report. Okay, so if I see this budget, take example of energy budget. Now, if I look at this energy budget, me as an economist will look only at the cost and the revenue. Somebody else, maybe from the field of management, will look into it for the kind of training which is given to those people who are getting involved in bringing up this energy to the maximum level. Maybe certain environmentalists will look at it as how much amount of carbon footprints are being treated in this particular budget by the policymakers. Maybe the activists will look at it from the perspective of how many people have been benefited from this budget, and then they will give their own decision. So what I'm trying to tell you is that in the case of multidisciplinary research, everybody will look from their own discipline. Whereas in case of interdisciplinary research, one point is given and everybody will have to upgrade that by putting in their own knowledge and then uplifting it. So in case of interdisciplinary research, which comes only when the multidisciplinary research is completed, then comes the interdisciplinary research. After interdisciplinary research also, see, understand, this is the process of development, and development can never be zero. So if one step is over, we go to the second step, we go to the third step, and this goes on. If we find that we have reached to the top, maybe it's limitation of our knowledge, and that is why we feel that we have reached to the top. Because beyond the top also there would be something else which is coming. It is only known to us when we expand our horizon and look for something new. So in case of interdisciplinary research and multidisciplinary research, if you see this picture, multidisciplinary research is looking at the particular research problem from their own view. Whereas in case of interdisciplinary research, it's the core which is being dealt by all the discipline at one time. You see, so this is the basic understanding of how we look at multidisciplinary, because I've seen many of the projects which come forwards, they use multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary as synonyms, you know, but they're not, they're totally different. And the differences lies especially into how we look at the problem from the perspective of each discipline and from the perspective of upliftment or giving the one single solution to the problem mentioned. So this is how it looks like, you know, which says that in the beginning we work for the discipline. See, you can't go for the multidisciplinary approach unless your fundamentals in your own disciplines are good. You see, so if you want to go for the multidisciplinary, or if you want to go beyond that, you need to understand, as I was talking about the inwardness of the research, this is the inwardness of the research. You try to understand a full depth of the areas which you want to become expert in, and when a particular level of expertise is being achieved, only then you can think about the multidisciplinarity, getting collaborated with somebody else to look for the problem. You see, after making it very clear that when there are other team members working on the same project or on the same research proposal, this research proposal where goal setting is done, with the thematic umbrella, then the time comes that whether this goal can be used by different disciplines by crossing their boundaries or not. You know, for example, when we study the climate change, you know, or I study environmental economics. So if I want to study something about, say, economics of climate change, I needed to understand that how the weather is changing, why global warming is happening, what is happening to the GHG, which has got no connection with the cost and benefit. I mean, when I say no connection means monetary, no connection with all that. Of course, indirect lot of connection is there, but I need to understand that my understanding of economics, how will I be using for this, for the purpose of finding out that what if global warming will stop, or what if global warming will increase. You know, do economy, say Indian economy, has that endurance to the climate change actions which are happening right now. So understand that first I have studied my own area of economics, then I tried to look at certain other areas which other departments, probably other disciplines, probably would be more closely studying. But then when I understand that there's a chance where the discipline boundaries can be crossed, then the team will bond together, and this bonding will help us to develop the integrated knowledge. So if you're aware, when the National Action Plan for the Climate Change was made, it wasn't only environmentalists, but there were the chemists, there were life science people, experts, there were economists, there were policy makers, there were geographers. So many people were together. The committee was a complete committee only when many disciplines have come forward. Now, as I was telling you, a very important part, even after interdisciplinary method or interdisciplinary research, which is happening, is convergence. You see, today I'm not going to give more emphasis on convergence because I'm going to keep my session only on interdisciplinary. But I would like you people to understand the importance of this convergence. Now, convergence implies that you are going beyond, crossing not only the discipline, but also the sectorial boundaries. You know, now when we try to cross the sectoral boundaries, the integrated knowledge for science as well as for the culture, for livelihood as well as for the anatomy, for you understand. So in this situation, the research is not confined only to, say, humanities or only to the social sciences, but it also touches upon the science, the pure science, biology, or say chemistry or physics, or in the modern times even the computers. Or I mean, to give you a very good example of convergence is, at university we are having one project which is the project which is you know, we are still working on it. It is not yet completed. So this project is about how computers will be used to produce certain artificial intelligence in learning languages. You see, so understand the in which computer hardware will be used, computer softwares will be used, the language experts will be involved, and of course economists will be involved, because whether this is only a conceptual one or this project will be the feasible even in terms of execution. You see, so the convergence happen when all the boundaries are you know, crossed. There is a delimit which is happening now. Because of these delimits, the upliftment, the process of development, the process of upgradation of the community becomes faster. To give you certain other examples, see, in multidisciplinary research, when the faculties from different disciplines are working independently on the common problem, we can get it. For example, like if I am talking about, say, which example I will give you. Okay, fine. If I say that somebody is working on, say, find out the archaeological age of Rajabai Tower. Rajabai Tower is our university monument, and which has got the archaeological status in 2019, and it is declared that it is more than 150 years old. So now in this, which disciplines would be coming in? So to give you example, there were historians, there were architectures, there were archaeologists, there were geographers, and there were also sociologists who were involved in it. So the research which has taken, I mean, the complete information about how the Rajabai Tower was constructed, how it is maintained, and what is the monumental value of that. You understand? So different disciplines are coming in the picture. So in this, what we are trying to check is that whether we will be able to put in the knowledge from different disciplines and our expertise, our fundamentals, how strong they are, will tell us whether we can go for the multidisciplinarity or not. To give you certain examples of, as I just mentioned, environmental economics, or the economics of climate change, or certain gender economics, or if I'm talking about health economics, or if I'm talking about, we have one other subject called as media economics. You see, so what are we doing? We are trying to take two different disciplines, bring them together, and say that these two disciplines also can work together. You see, so sometimes, I mean, of course, there are certain areas wherein we just use tools, and then also we make the subject more stronger. For example, when we use quantitative techniques in economics, the empirical results of economic research become stronger. So that also is one of the area wherein we look for how research can be enhanced. Now, with this interdisciplinary research, what are the things which we are looking for? What are the things which can be achievable? See, in the interdisciplinary research, there is a basics where shifting of thought process, which is important. You see, because when the thought process gets enhanced, only then we will be able to move towards a new paradigm. If the thought process is not changing, if I look at any policy documents only from cost and benefit, probably welfare economics would not have entered. You see, that is why when we talk about shifting of thought process, we climb the steps and then we say that, okay, one discipline understood, another discipline understood. So I'm not saying that there is always a vertical kind of climbing which is important. There also can be horizontal spread of mobility, and this horizontal spread of mobility or vertical shift of thought process, both thought processes would be important and would be achievable only if we go for interdisciplinary research. Now, interdisciplinary research is generally collaborative. I hope you understand the meaning of collaborative. Now, collaborative implies that integration of the disciplines should get the equal weightage. You see, it's not that you are just giving one tadka and say that, yes, this is interdisciplinary research. For making it more interdisciplinary and more authenticated research, we need to have a proportion of collaboration which is determined. Not necessarily it is always 50-50%. It can be 60-40. It can be 70-30-20, 10, 70-20-10 can be possible. The proportion that shows that how much degree of significance will be given to each of the discipline in this interdisciplinary. We never ever say that always equal degree of significance should be given to everyone. Even if, for example, while eating food, the importance given to salt is also very, very significant. You see, the proportion which is used of the salt is not the same as how much we use vegetable. But that is how different disciplines should be treated while having integration of the knowledge and making the collaborative studies together. It should, I mean, the interdisciplinary study will shift to the convergence provided there is a best positive societal impact. That's the reason why everywhere we think about how to have mitigation programs for climate change, or environmental studies have become so important, and everywhere there will be a special branch which is started for this. Why? Especially because it is definitely going to have a positive societal impact, and that is how this is the interdisciplinarity of the research is important. In the convergence, we try to facilitate the transdisciplinarity also. Now, this is again the very modern term which I am using, but this transdisciplinarity integration is happening especially in the pure sciences like physical science or engineering or life science. This is basically where the synthetic framework of scientific and social challenges to interface the different areas of fields have been dealt. So here what we try to do is we merge the diverse areas of expertise in a network of partnership, and then we make it more convergent, where the innovations will be stimulated, inventions will happen, technology will change, and finally the transformation will occur. You see, so use of multidisciplinary to interdisciplinary and then finally to the convergence requires to look into how the transformation of knowledge is happening. These are some of the theories which we study in the research. To explain you some of these theories, understand these theories are actually used in research wherein we talk about collaborative research. Now, why collaborative research? Excuse me, I'll just drink water. Yeah, so why collaborative collaborative study? Especially because the research which is to be holistic, to be comprehensive, need not be restricted only at one area, but should also go beyond what horizon a particular discipline is fixing for oneself. Now, what is the role of theory in it? The role of theory in interdisciplinary research is very, very vital. Why? Especially because we all know how the theory is formed. The theory is composed of concepts, constructs, and the proposition of a few ideas which are related to each other. These concepts are beliefs, they are either in terms of beliefs or in terms of cognitions. Now, these beliefs can be developed with the help of the similar thinking, or because of customs, or because of certain cultural activities like marriages or certain events. Now, the constructs in the theory after concepts are comprised of different concepts brought together. You see, so the constructs are inferred from commonalities along with the observed phenomena, which can be used to explain this phenomena. So there are three things which are very important in theory in disciplinary knowledge, in disciplinary research. One, we have to understand what is conceptualization. We have to understand how construction takes place in this, and what kind of propositions of different set of related ideas are taken into consideration. So in different areas, interdisciplinary areas, the propositions which can be transformed into theories are called as certain examples of theories in certain disciplines. Tell you these certain examples. In sociology, we have made a theory called as theory of social capital. You see, or in psychology, there is a theory called as attachment theory. Okay, or even in education, there's a theory called as critical pedagogy theory. You see, so these theories, when come together, we will be able to bring, for example, if I'm using a theory of social capital, and if I want to talk about what is happening into the psychology, in the psychology, there will be some attachment theory where social capital can get formed provided the family's bonding is so good that the affection amongst each other and the relatives will allow the society to form social capital. Get my point? So what I'm trying to do here is, I'm trying to tell you is, from the sociology, there's a fundamental theory. From the psychology, there's a fundamental theory. We club together and we have the theories which can be used for interdisciplinary research. For example, as I've mentioned here, agency theory. Now, in agency theory, what we try to do is we use two agencies. We have two parties. I mean, for example, in economics, we have a behavioral theory, which is also the next one, which I will be explaining. But understand, in case of agent theory, the two parties wherein one will play as the role of principal and the other one will play as a role of agent, and both of them will come together bringing their agendas and trying to collaborate with each other with different ideas and different ideologies. You see, so that is called as agency theory. So in the agency theory, what we try to see is how the different disciplines will bring in the two-party agenda of themselves and collaborate. To give you an example of this agency theory, in economics, we have trade unions, you see. So we understand the role of trade union to fix the wages and to fix the remuneration and employment. All right. So on the other hand, if I'm talking, I mean, so the principle here will be, we want to have a better society. Now, to have the better society, from economics, we see how the unions work, but to bring in that in the market, we see that what is the role of the entire other society to absorb them. For example, socially, how people are looking at these principal ideas to collaborate with them and decide on one healthy society. You see, so that's called as agency theory. Then there is another theory called as planned behavior. So in the planned behavior, it is presumed that individual behavior represent conscious reasoned choices. You see, now these choices are on the basis of cognitive thinking, but this cognitive thinking is not of one's own. Cognitive thinking is because of the social pressure. You see, so so that means, to give you example, in gender economics, uh, the discrimination between men and women happens because of women being less empowered than that of men. Now this is again not only the phenomena of ability, the physical ability or psychological ability, but this is the phenomena where social pressure will make the person think that what the person should be. You see, so here it is a social pressure which makes the perception of the individual about oneself. So that is called as a planned behavior theory. So this planned behavior theory checks the perception of controlled behavior. Who controls it? I mean, in my example, the society controls it. What society controls? The society controls the ability of a human, man or a woman, ability of a human to behave in the economic domain or in the political domain or in the domain of the strength. You see, so planned behavior theory speaks again about the interdisciplinarity of that. Then there's another theory called as innovation diffusion theory. Now this innovation diffusion theory is a theory which is like little different from what other theories are. In the innovation diffusion theory, we focus more on the key elements like what should be the communication channel, what should be the time involved in it, what kind of social system checked, and basically the impact of innovation on all this. So these innovations, which will include for the communication, what technologies to be used, for the time, what kind of new ideas are suggested, for adopting of the individual as or in the organization as a part of the organization, what kind of social system is required. So here we are, pulling together the ideas which are going to pop up with the help of technology, the perception which is going to be there with the help of social understanding, the technologies which is with the help of even engineering or any other pure science techniques or technical know-how. So with this, we try to diffuse the innovation and bring in all the different disciplines together. So when innovation diffusion theory is given, there's another theory which is little different from innovative diffusion theory called as general deterrence theory. Now, in general deterrence theory, this theory is also, I mean, in the modern times, what we try to see is how this theory is being used for the purpose of giving certain laws or making certain rules, So this is just to give you more explanation about this general deterrence theory. This theory gives explanation of crime and even the methods to reduce the crime. For example, if we get to know the problem of free riders, on when there are public goods, we all know there are free riders. Those who do not, for example, if the people are traveling by train without taking out the ticket. So now what is going to happen because of this is the theory holds that people are fundamentally rational. You see, those people who are riding free on the train are also rational. Why are they riding on the train free? Especially because on one hand, their individual economics says that it is easy, it is beneficial for them, that they are not going to spend anything. But understand, there is another discipline there called as the discipline of the civics. Now, this discipline says that if you do so, if individual does so, maybe the society will not get benefit, and to get the benefit, society needs to impose the penalty on this. Okay, so according to the civic sense, the law will come into the picture, and there will be a rule which will be accepted, which says that in case if somebody is caught traveling without ticket, should be penalized with certain fine. You see, now in the general deterrence theory, you have two disciplines coming together. One discipline of mental anxiety, the psychology. Traveling without ticket is again creating a lot of anxiety in it. The rationality also says that the benefit is there in terms of economics, that I'll be able to save some money, but at the same time the law also is coming into, the discipline of law is also coming into the scene, and saying that if you are caught, you will have to be paying little more. So the rationality says that the form of punishment is, if unaffordable, if the cost is very high, then there will be probability of apprehension measured. Now, because of this, if there is a swiftness, severity, and certainty of punishment, which will be used for constructing of deterrence in this interdisciplinary. I have just given you one example which speaks about how different disciplines comes in. But understand that sometimes we also have to understand beyond these examples that there may be certain issues of each area which also may stop, may restrict to have a collaboration and have an integrated research, where deterrence will tell us which area is that. You see, then comes another theory called as elaborative likelihood theory. This elaborative likelihood theory is the theory which explains how individuals are influenced to change their attitude towards certain objects or events. You see, certain times the relative efficacy of their changes strategies will be explained by the likelihood model. This posits that one's attitude may be shaped by two or more roots of influences. So the central root and the peripheral root, which differs in the amount of thoughtful information processing or elaboration which required of people in elaborate likelihood thinking. You see, so in case of elaborative likelihood theory, there will be the influence will have to be studied, and these influence will tell us that in what way the weightage given to each of the discipline can be combined together and make the collaboration possible. The last theory, this is not last one of the theory which I was explaining in all, which is called chaos theory. Now, this theory is bit different from the earlier theories. In chaos theories, what happened is that sometimes using of more disciplines will generate certain kind of chaos. But understand that this chaos also can be monitored, and this chaos also can be estimated. So when we use these techniques, these scientific techniques to understand the the interaction of different disciplines, we try to use this particular theory called as chaos theory. Now, knowing that these are certain theories which we come across in the interdisciplinary studies, I will not go into the details of how these theories are executed, but I can give you reference to check how these theories can be executed. I have mentioned the references in the end also, and I'm sure that if you are a real researcher in interdisciplinary study, I am sure that this will be very useful for you. Now let us come to how these interdisciplinarity will be measured and how the scaling is done. So what is required here is the selection of measurement. You see, now the selection of measurement implies that there are certain theoretical propositions which consist of certain relationships between abstract, which is constructed in the theory making. These theories need to be tested. You see, now these testing will require measuring these constructs accurately with the scientific manner and with the strength of their relationship with each other. You see, because sometimes certain disciplines are completely exclusive of each other. So in that case, whether we will be able to collaborate studies for all of them or not, that's the question mark. And that is why we needed to have a selection of measurement. Any good research should examine the procedure wherein we needed to see how the theory is conceptualized and how the theory is operationalized. You see, now conceptualization is, again, it can be a unidimensional or multidimensional. If I'm talking about a unidimensional conceptualization, it can be positive, it can be negative. But in case of multidimensional conceptualization, there may be chances that there are occurrence of positive and negative concepts. You see, so what we try to see is, in case of execution of these theories in the interdisciplinary research, when the conceptualization is decided whether it is unidimensional or multidimensional, our next step is to go for the operationalization. Now, in operationalization, a very useful method is to measure or is to scale the size of area. I think Vinay has raised the hand. Do you want to ask anything? Go ahead. Vijay, Mr. Vijay Jariwala wants to ask something.
John, please unmute him.
Yes, ma'am, unmuting, sir. Ma'am, that sir has joined without audio.
Okay, it is my mistake.
So the person can write in the chat.
Yes. Ma'am, you can continue.
Okay, I will continue then. Okay, so I was talking about the operationalization. So in the operationalization, what we try to do is we try to find out how the measure or how the scaling is done here. So for that purpose, we need to select the scales, you know. So the selection of scale for operationalization, I mean, of course, you must be aware of how the scaling pattern is done. I will just tell you that in interdisciplinary research, how to use the similar scales so that we will be able to collaborate and we will be able to, you know, to give the holistic precision for the expected results. So we have scales like what is a nominal scale. Now this nominal scale data is the data where we try to measure the central tendency of the nominal scale. Now, we all know the central tendency of the nominal scale is always a mode. So we try to define these mode and use the statistics, like a simple statistic of chi-square, some people call it as chi-square. So, and the frequency distribution, wherein we will be able to, the data which is collected from different areas, if the data is not purely numerical, then we cannot go for it. But if it is a numerical, if you are able to make it numericals, maybe by using dummy variables or by using, because if we combine the qualitative and quantitative techniques together, I mean, I remember I had the similar problem when I was working with the area like philosophy and economics together. You know, the philosophical data collection is very different from the data collection of economics. You see, so we had to use certain techniques wherein this philosophical data was also converted and the economics data was also converted in the same paradigm, and then we had to treat this particular area. So the nominal scale will be used, or ordinal scales will be used. You know, the ranking can be given to that, or we can use the interval scales. And with all these types of scales, I think we can measure how much will be the size of the project. The size of the project implies that what will be the scope of this project, wherein 2 or more disciplines are coming into this. Making the questionnaires or preparing, because I mean, I'm sharing my own experience where I was also working with the political science and the sociology, and when we wanted to use something like a ratio scale, you know, in political science, to use the ratios, again we require to have certain numerical data collection. See, economics is very prone with the numerical data collection, but the other sciences, even today, are not that prone with the numericals one. So then what we have to go? We have to go for either a binary scale, or we have to go for the Likert scale, or we have to go for the semantic differential scale. I'm sure you must have studied this. If not, I can also explain you how you go for it. See, if the numerical data is not available, then you need to collect the data with the questionnaires, or by transforming the secondary source of information into certain kind of the tabular format, so that, you know, it becomes easier for review it. You see, if you are still going with a kind of qualitative data collection in terms of the primary source, Likert scale and binary scale are generally preferred, because these type of things do not give you, I mean, binary scale of course gives you yes and no, but Likert gives you a range, you see, or even in terms of the semantic differential along with the Likert, which gives you, see, Likert gives you more granularity, you know, the which includes the respondents sometimes do not are completely neutral, or sometimes they are more aggressive. Now, in case of semantic differential scale, the scale where respondents can indicate their opinions or feelings, you know. See, in since my basic is from economics, I always see my perception always go from economics. So even when I talk about feelings, what we do in our research is we still shift those feelings in terms of collection of the scales like Likert. How good you feel about a particular price, 0 to 1, 1 to 5, like that, you know, we give the scale there. Or in case if I say how bad you feel about reduction of the green cover in Maharashtra, you see. So once again, this is a feeling But this feeling also can be explained with the help of a scale. You see, so if we can convert this, because when two or more disciplines come together, we need to have a same units to analyze it. And that is why the dimensions of scalings will have to be worked on. You see, there's another the scale, if you know, I just name few of the scales, Likert scale or semantic differential or Gutman scales. Now, these are some of the scales which we use. And if these types of scales are of no use, then we go for other types of measurement in terms of weights, or by measuring in terms of indexes, or by using those indexes. I mean, we have health index, or we have what is that? Employment index, happiness index. We have the gender development index. I hope you get. I mean, even while calculating these indexes, for example, if I talk about health index. Now, in health index, one of the criteria which does not come from economics as such is their longevity. That comes from what you say, the medical science. You see, but still, because that is in terms of number, we can use it and calculate an index of it and use it for comparison. You see, so as I have mentioned it earlier, even if indexes or scales are not working, then we go for weights. And I mean, the weights will start right from the beginning, from the conceptualization of the problem of the project. You see, the objective of the project, if is checked from different disciplines, and we know that the core will come from a particular discipline, more weights will be given to that particular discipline and the collection of data which is done from that particular discipline. You see, of course, there is not many things which I can talk about here in terms of how the sample is selected, what should be the research design for that, how this sampling size and sampling type is decided for the for making this more interdisciplinary. So in all this, what we are trying to check is the way in which we look at the problem, understand this problem, and go ahead with it. The steps to involved in the interdisciplinary research are these. So we need to keep our problem more practical. I understand in many of disciplines, the topics, I mean, for example, this is a little humorous example. When a patient goes to the doctor, and when doctor asks the patient, patient says that there's a headache. So how do you say that? What is the headache? It's very difficult for a doctor also to scale the headache. You see, so when you say that a particular problem is there, in research, especially in interdisciplinary research, see to it that this particular problem is practical or not. So the best way is to use this interdisciplinary interest around an issue is to get yourself involved in it. If the issue is first-hand, focus on the specific problem. You see, the problem which can be having a real world impact. Try to artificially force the researcher, where the researchers means that may be your investigators. Those investigators can bring the information from different disciplines. Now, they may expect that this is something new, but maybe when you find that these problems are common problems, bring these problems to the core. And when you bring this problem to the core, maybe the issue, the objective will become more practical. You see, so when the objective is practical, there is generally we try to see to it that how we can easily reach to the targets. Many a times the targets are difficult to reach, but to make them easier, I think if we follow a scientific path, as I have given earlier, by using the theory, by using the proposals, and then by executing the object hypothesis, we can do it. Now, the third step here is that when you bring other disciplines together, it will work provided it speaks on the same language. You see, I don't mean that speaks on the same language means that economist will speak like the historian and historian will speak like a geographer. Not like that. But everybody should have the fundamentals clear, and then they know that what target they are looking at. So for which what is required is you need to build a proper relationship. You need to break the molds which were, which were the stereotypes which were there earlier. Society initially thought that there is a demarcation, there is all the departments are separated, but now we need to break the mold, because as I have mentioned it earlier, even NEP, UGC were telling us from way back, but now even NEP is mentioning that we have to go for the interdisciplinary model. So you need to set the goal, break down all the silos, and just execute the research. So if you do all this, I think these are the questions which you need to answer. Interdisciplinary research should not be like this. I hope this is clear to you. It's not the blind man and the elephant. This elephant should be known to each one of us properly, and only then we can go for the interdisciplinary research. If we are like this blind man, this interdisciplinary research will not come to any conclusion. We will not have a good hands on it. So we need to understand this from the macro perspective, make micro perspective more strong, and when we become more stronger, the elephant will be known to all of us, and we can easily ride on this elephant. So maybe in the future, we will ask the question, where does music come from? Can we use artificial intelligence for language development? What do you think about the digital privacy? You understand? These statements which I have written here, which we are now going to look forward from the binocular, which is going to have two things together, minimum two things together. Where does music come from? History and music. You see? Can we use AI for language development? Computers and linguists. What people think about digital privacy? Digital privacy is computers, and the privacy is our right. So law, administration, and digital. So what I see is, with the binocular, we should be able to see that how interdisciplinary is our research and the way in which we can find it. So in our head, all these are clubbed. It is only that, unlike those blind men, we should not get confused with it. We should come out with the proper, correct answers to it. So these are the references to what I have just spoken. And with this, thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you, Medha ma'am. And I think a lot of questions are there. Vijay, can you pick up some questions?
Yes, go ahead. Shall I read there are the questions?
There are many questions that popped up, ma'am.
Yeah. Can you please read it for me?
Yeah, one question is Subhas Malled is asking, how can I find theoretical framework theories on sociology?
On sociology, maybe I am not the correct person to answer, but I can give you, in my reference, I will again show you that slide. I can tell you that book will give you certain ideas from where you get the sources of theories in sociology. Because interdisciplinary theories will actually work for all the disciplines. So I think you can refer to that. There's a book by Amol Banerjee, and the name of this book is Research Methodology for Humanities. So I think this book is the book which will give you, I think, almost all the theories.
Ma'am, there is one question by Sandesh sir. So it is, can you give some search engine for theory applicable in social sciences?
Search engine, you want search engine, Mahesh, right? Mahesh, I think you will have to work on it. Rather, I will also have to work on it, because what I do is when I wanted to look for certain theories, I actually still now, even today, I go to the library and get the book, you know. So finding out search engine, maybe now I will have to look for the search engines, but the moment I'll get it, I'll share it with you.
You participants, if you have any more questions, you can put in the chat box. Okay, ma'am, there is one question by Rohit Kumar. Please guide me any book where I can find theories related to behavioral biases and investment decision making.
There's a fantastic book on quantitative behaviors. I think by Kahneman. So I think you will get lot many theories. This is quantitative financial behavior. You see where you will get these theories. It's a good book by Kahneman, Kahneman, the behavioral economist. You can also, I think, refer to the book by Avinash Dixit. But Avinash Dixit is a little more mathematical. I think Kahneman will explain you more in with the examples.
There was one more question I've seen. Can you see that? Anupriya, somebody has asked. How theory relates to research process?
Theory is the base for the research process. Actually, that's what I was trying to tell, because unless you conceptualize something, the research, I mean, you know, everything is spread. So you have to bring all those things together. So it is only when you bring the different, when you try to connect the points, only then the research happens. And when the research is a true research, you can convert. You can, if you are able to generalize that, then the theory happens. So that's the process of. It need not be from theory to the research, but it's actually from research to the theories, and those theories again will help more research to happen.
Any more questions? Megha ma'am has actually done a lot of interdisciplinary research, as far as I know her. Ma'am has been into tribal areas and doing research. Fantastic field work she does. So yeah, we are really proud to have you, Megha ma'am, because you really explored all those possibilities to do interdisciplinary research through your session. Fantastic. And somebody is asking something. Best tool for information seeking behavior.
Sorry?
Best tool for information seeking behavior.
Best tool is be curious. Always be curious. That's the best tool. because if your curiosity stops, that means the research won't happen. So you need to work. I mean, as we all know that the technology is helping us. So I think if you have hands on the technology, probably that's the best way. So that's it.
Yes, Vijay, we can. That was nice.
Yes, ma'am. It was very nice session and very beautifully you have answered to all those questions. What was been like it was very much as a researcher. Every now and then there will be some or the other questions, and yes, you have tried your best to clear out all the questions. Now I would request Assistant Professor Mahesh Savle to give away vote of thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Vijay sir. It is my privilege to propose vote of thanks to Professor Dr. Medha Tapiawala. Thank you so much, madam, for accepting our invitation and delivering such an insightful session. Madam, you have not only provided in-depth knowledge about the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research, but also various perspectives and approaches in the field of multi and interdisciplinary research as well. I'm sure all the participants have gained immensely from the session. I would also like to thank our management for continuously supporting such initiatives taken by the institution. I would also like to thank our principal, Dr. Sridhar Shetty sir, for encouraging and being supportive of such research-based initiatives to boost the research culture on the campus. I would like to thank Vice Principal and IQAC Coordinator, Dr. Liji Santosh, for organizing this workshop for the benefit of academicians in the research arena. I would like to thank Vice Principal, Professor Sandesha Shetty sir, for his constant support in organizing such activities and this workshop as well. I'm grateful to the organizing and technical team for their support and assistance in execution and implementation of the entire program. I would also like to thank all the participants being a receptive audience throughout the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Medha, and it was really nice.
So
Thank you
much
so
for
much.
kind words, Mahesh, and thank you, Liji.
Yes,
Thank you everyone for having me. I'm sure that somebody will at least will be provoked to do some interdisciplinary research, and for any help, I'll be there.
Yes, please. And she's from our own university, our university department person. We can always, have Medha ma'am with us. Sandesh sir is there. I want you need to get introduced to Sandesh. Sandesh.
Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Sandesh is my colleague, Medha. He's a vice principal of the college and is there now. Yeah.
Good to see him actually. Where is he?
Oh, okay.
Just